Hey guys, it's Malachi here. Today we have another video and the topic is boundaries. What is a boundary? How do we implement boundaries? Why are boundaries necessary? Before we get started and dive deep into the kaleidoscopic eye, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Oh yeah, and hit that notification bell, please. Okay, we'll see you soon. Now that we're back, what is a boundary? Oftentimes we were not taught, what a boundary truly is and how to properly set boundaries. Many people don't even know how to set a boundary, and often these people have issues like codependency, people pleasing, people that have a hard time saying no, people that don't like confrontation, things like that. They have a hard time learning how to enforce boundaries within their lives. And they're not being self-assertive. They don't always tell people what is acceptable for them and what is not acceptable for them. So they allow people to walk all over them. They don't know how to make a stand for themselves. And just about everything else, that they just allow anything that people are doing, what is being thrown at them in life, they just take it as a grain of salt, and then they end up feeling guilty. Like, oh, well, if I talk about it, I'm going to lose that person, or they're going to get mad at me, and I really don't want them to get mad at me, or it's frustrating, but they're not going to keep doing it. Things like that. We tell ourselves these things. Like, I personally have been there. I've done these things. And mainly is because I was so unaware that I had a voice. Even though I was always talking and like trying to promote good things throughout my whole life, trying to tell people what I thought, but at the same time I wasn't truly clear about how boundaries worked because I wasn't properly taught it as a child. There was things that happened that kind of scratched all boundaries when it comes to my existence. So I thought that it was acceptable for people to do these things. It wasn't until I went through some even more traumatic experiences in my life with people and just some situations that happened to me that I kind of woke up and I realized this is not gonna fly. This is not okay, and I deserve better than this because I know what I bring to the table, and other people better be bringing that too. Knowing boundaries, how do you know that it's being violated? This is also something that a lot of us don't recognize, myself included. I would always make excuses for other people. I would allow them to do certain things because I thought that, you know what, it's okay, everybody makes mistakes. I was in this lower headspace thinking that it was okay for people to walk on me. It's not okay for anybody to walk over anybody, for that matter. So, how do we set boundaries? First and foremost, a good way to start is to write down your boundaries. Figure out what you want from people, how you want them to treat you, what you think is acceptable for you, and stick to that. Don't back down from it for anybody. It doesn't matter if your partner is doing stuff, if your family is doing stuff to hurt you, making remarks, putting you in crappy situations. Don't allow it. Be firm through self-love and unconditional self-love. Don't back down. Be true to yourself. Figure out what your boundaries are. That's first and foremost. You can't really move forward unless you know what you will accept and what you won't accept. And that kind of goes to, how do you know what boundaries are acceptable? Normally, we will react out of ego and anger when somebody is pushing our boundaries. And a good way to figure that out, what I mean by that is, like, say someone says something to you and you get really upset. They're pushing a boundary. That is a boundary that's being pushed. Say somebody has physically harmed you. That is a boundary that is definitely being pushed. Some certain situations where people are around, you're going to get enraged, you're going to get sad. You're going to feel it within your body. Some people get it really bad anxiety, things like that when they're around certain people because certain actions are being done. These are violations. When you're feeling these feelings, it's violating boundaries within yourself. So that goes back to the first thing of make sure to hone in and figure out truly what is acceptable for you, what isn't acceptable, so that when these things arise, you can go at it with a form of love. Instead of getting angry and reacting, you can calmly put forth, this is not okay. Say no and make it a complete sentence. Be like, hey, how you're treating me right now is a violation of my boundaries, and I will not accept it going forward. And if this is a mistake, that's great, but if it happens again, I'm going to have to move on. Be firm, but do it in a kind, loving manner so that people get the point. And if they are truly meant to be in your life and they truly want to be there to bring light and positivity, they will respect those boundaries. But you got to voice it. But remember, when you're voicing it, do it in a loving, respectful manner. People will react a lot better and think about what they've done to change it if you're coming about it with love. If you're reacting with anger and ego or sadness, depression, anxiety, any of that from that standpoint, it's going to counterreact. So they're going to come right back at you with more crap. So make sure to acknowledge how you're feeling, think about it, center yourself, and then voice it, but in a loving manner. No is a complete sentence, and you have all rights to tell people what is okay for you and what isn't. And this leads to the point, if they don't respect and they keep violating you continuously after you have voiced how you feel, it's time to cut that person out of your life. For a long time in my life, for example, I allowed a lot of people in my life. My circle was really big. And it got to a point where I loathed myself. I hated what I was allowing around me. I was suffering depression and anxiety because I was constantly putting myself around people that weren't good for me, that called me down, that treated me like crap, even though I was expressing my love towards them. And I had to learn through a lot of heartbreak and situations that it wasn't okay. And I finally took the stance to be like, you know what? These people aren't meant for me. And it was lonely for a little while. But once you remove these people that keep violating you, like if someone does something and you express yourself in a loving manner and they stop that habit, don't cut those people off. They're meant to be in your life because they're making that effort to show you that they care about you just as much as you care about yourself. They're positive people to be around you. But if you are constantly having to tell people over and over again what is okay to do towards you and what is not, cut them out. It may be lonely for a while. It may be a little frustrating, but your life you're going to open up to let the universe bring in the people that are right for you. And there's so many people out there. So when you rise yourself up, you start loving yourself. Unconditionally loving yourself and respecting yourself, setting healthy boundaries, you're going to attract more of those people. You're going to clear out all the garbage, and it's going to bring in positive people that love and respect you and that will not put you in situations where your boundaries are compromised because they're in a loving space. They're setting their own healthy boundaries. So why would they go out of their way to push your boundaries when they don't want their boundaries pushed? It's like this respectful give and take. Keep yourself surrounded with this decent people, plain and simple. After you cut loose all those people, you may be by yourself for a little bit. So what? Being by yourself is really good. It's introspective. You learn a lot. You heal a lot. And then you can bring and shine your light so bright to everybody around you that come and gravitate towards you because It's like the law of attraction. When you push negativity away and you're spewing love and positivity, you're going to get that back. And they're never going to violate those situations. They know that there's no point on doing that. When people around you see you happy and you're in bliss, it's going to attract more of that. Then we go to experiencing pure bliss. Living, loving without being miserable. It's kind of like the ripple effect. When you're having your healthy boundaries and you're being true to you, that's going to ripple out. And then it's like that little, you throw the stone, you skip the stone rock on the water, and then you see all the rippling effects. It goes out like that, and it'll come right back. Then there's, again, don't let somebody else's crazy become yours. A lot of times people are going through some rough stuff and they don't know how to properly express themselves, and so they'll throw baggage onto you. They'll just spew it out, all this negativity on you, and then you got to be firm. No, this ain't happening. You are not going to bring that towards me. You need to go center on yourself, your problems, your negativity. You can be there to support them. That's great. If you are in the headspace that you can help somebody that's going through a rough time, do that. Do it. But make sure that after you do that, you center yourself again and you put up those boundaries, and you don't keep circulating that crap. Because sometimes when it comes to boundaries, we take on other people's energies, we take on other people's problems, and we make them our own. I've been bad for that. I've helped a lot of people, and through my journey, I've taken on their stresses. Just trying to be good to them, me not putting up my boundaries, not saying no. I've helped people, and I will continue to help people. But I did it in a manner where afterwards I felt so drained, and I'd be angry and stressed, and I couldn't figure out why. And it's because I was making their problems into my problems. So you got to be healthy in that aspect. When you have other people around you that are going through chaos, if they're having a bad day or something's blowing up in their life, just make sure that, okay, well, you're there for them, but don't allow what's going on with them to affect you. That goes back to centering yourself and self-loving yourself unconditionally. That's the main message here. It's about self-love. If you are setting healthy boundaries with self-love, it brings nothing but that reflection back onto you. If you are swaying from your boundaries, it's going to bring nothing but sadness, anger, frustration, anxiety. Who has time to deal with that crap? We have enough things going on in our lives that we need to deal with. We don't need to have other people's problems become our problems. It's just counterintuitive. So again, taking out the trash, being there for people when you are actually mentally capable of doing it. Centering yourself, self-loving yourself, and saying no. If you can't be there for somebody at some point, they might get angry because you're not there to take on their problems. But you know what? It's not your problem to take on. If you are able to, at that point, to help them push through it and give them positive suggestions, that's great. But their problems are their problems, just like your problems are yours. And they only get bigger if you allow them to. That today kind of wraps up the basics of boundaries. Love yourself. No means no. If people don't respect them, let them go. Once you do all these things, people that are of good value will gravitate towards you. Plain and simple. And remember, write down what is okay for you and what isn't, and stick to it. People aren't going to like it that are negative, but it's time for them to go, because you're moving on to brighter and better future with people that are loving, supportive, and kind, and that will respect what you bring to the table as you do to them. And that's what we all deserve. But again, it starts with healthy boundaries. Don't let what other people do matter too much to you. Worry about yourself, balance yourself, give yourself unconditional love, be good to you, get rid of that toxicity. It brings more good to you. That wraps it up for today, guys. Much love. We'll see you tomorrow.